Well, today we are going to speak to the author of a new book called Paradise Stars. Now, the author is a very well-known name, Shweta Bachchan Nanda, and she's probably going to hate it that many people introduce her as Amitabh Bachchan's daughter, but she's also the granddaughter of a legendary poet, Harivansh Rai Bachchan. And she, in her new book, which is a novel, it is an interesting book about a society in Mumbai, Mumbai Society Tower, and the people in it. And it has lots of surprises about that. And she dedicates this to her grandfathers. Both of them are authors. Thank you very much for coming on NDTV to talk about this interesting book. And as I said, I apologize for introducing you as your father's daughter, but I'm sure you must be used to that.
No, I'm proud to be his daughter.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's really interesting is, first of all, I mean, I have to say that, you know, when you talk about you've dedicated this book to your grandfather, Harivansh Rai Bachchan, and to Tarun Kumar Bhaduri, your maternal grandfather. It must be really intimidating as a writer to be the granddaughter of someone who is such a legendary and a literary figure. You know, he's not just a writer, but even for someone like me who's not familiar with Hindi literature, we all know Madhushala. Is that intimidating?
No. It isn't intimidating. It's a huge legacy and it would be a task to live up to it. But it isn't intimidating. He's first and foremost was my grandfather. Both of them were my grandfather. So my equation and connection with them is not through their work. It's a human equation. So therefore it isn't intimidating as such. Also, I'm writing in a different language and not aspiring to be anywhere near what their league is. So it's a start, it's a baby step.
Because I saw your father tweet that, you know, you obviously have got the Harivansh Rai legacy. Do you expect the people who appreciate his work, who understand his work, to pick up your book? And what do you think they'll make of that? That, you know, because you're being introduced by your father as well as, you know, this is the one who she's going to carry on the literary tradition.
Well, my grandfather was a poet. Both my grandfathers, one was a poet, one was an author. And my book is commercial fiction. It's not what they were writing. I don't expect them to have the same audiences, but yes, I expect some curiosity.
Yeah.
And I would encourage those people to pick up the book, read it, give me a chance. It's as simple as that. I mean, there's no such thing as a really bad book.
Of course
not. Even if you read a book, you learn something. So
no, it's interesting. But how did you come up with this genre? Was that always there? Were you writing stories as a young child? You were?
My grandfather lived with us. And you grow up in a home like that. It's a part of your daily life. You know, you walk into his room and sometimes he's writing. So you sort of have to be quiet or you have to sort of go away. And, you know, I remember telling someone, I've done quite a few of these interviews now, and I still remember, you know, in those days there was no computer and laptop. He would write with his pen and his ink pot and his blotter. So these are smells and memories that are still so alive in my head.
Like, how old were you?
I must have been 5, 6, you know, and I'd run into his room and he'd be sitting there, you know, slaving over his work. And so I remember those things very, very vividly. I don't remember him ever typing anything. It was always handwritten, beautiful penmanship. So, you know, when you grow up in a home like that, you're encouraged to read, you're encouraged to write, and I did, but for myself. And I've been writing ever since, actually, but not for the public. Again, for myself. I was never really confident that my work could be published.
And you know what's interesting is that when you say, you know, when I look at the book and I say, okay, Shweta Bachchan Nanda, and the thing is that, you know, I think it's from Little Women that they always say you write what you know really well, right?
Yes, yes.
So even though I know this is fiction or whatever, I picked up this book thinking that, you know, I'll get some kind of insight. Obviously, you know, we're all curious people. I always thought that, you know, I'll pick up this book and, you know, what would you know about? You would know about this world of two very famous actors. And of course, like you say about your grandfather, who's a very well-known literary figure. And it's interesting. I mean, I want to know now from you, from the book and the story, and as I told our viewers, that, you know, it's a story about the people in a society, all different kind of characters and the lives, and there's a surprise element when somebody dies and all of that. So, you know, how much of this is drawn from your life?
Well, this isn't a life I've lived. This is a life I've observed. And I mean, I've always been a very shy child, always very nervous and shy to be in the spotlight. And I've lived in, honestly, it's been a life that everyone has had an opinion to, or everyone can see, you know, what I'm up to or what I'm doing. And maybe it's because of that, I don't know, maybe it's subconscious. It's just certain parts and aspects of your life when you share someone with the world, like my father or my mother, my brother, my sister-in-law, it's just about everyone in my family. There's certain aspects you just want to keep to yourself that everybody doesn't have access to, you know.
You're saying that you wouldn't want to write about, because that's too private.
Yes, and I would like, I know that, you know, so many people would love to know about it.
So it was a conscious decision that, look, I'm going to write fiction right
Yes.
now. Were you living in a building?
No, never.
Never?
No, never.
Then how do you know all this?
Because I had a lot of friends who lived in buildings, and it was something that I always wanted to do. I wanted to live in a building. The life there was just so amazing and fascinating. You had immediate access to your building friends. I had none. We lived a very protected life growing up.
Would you go into their buildings and play?
Yes, of course.
Okay.
And I mean, not play, but you know, you'd go for birthday parties, or on the weekend if you got, you know, a play date, we'd go there, and it was just so fascinating.
You know, one of the main characters in your book, it's an interfaith couple, right? That's one of the central, you know, kind of, you know, crux of your book.
Yeah.
What happens to that and how the entire building gets involved, which is actually a very, very current story. So how did you come up with this idea?
Again, it was just while I was writing the story, I knew things I wanted. I had a plot, and this was just a part of a plot, because there will be some kind of friction, some resistance, but it is also a reality today, and that's fine. It's good to be interfaith.
Of course.
Yeah.
Did you see that? I mean, is there a real
Of course,
life
there's
thing?
several people I know, and so many of my friends who are interfaith couples, or, you know, I have friends who are Indians, who are married to, you know, foreigners, and they're living very peaceful, regular, normal lives, happy lives.
You know, what struck me about it was that, you know, these were educated people. This is such a central issue right now.
Yes.
You know, people getting attacked because they're interfaith. And in your book, there's this really rich Muslim girl whose affair with a Hindu person makes her family, it really tears apart her family, and also the people all around it, like, you know, the politics of that plays out in society. And what's interesting to see is, obviously you must be like quite disturbed by what you see in the news, and that's reflecting in there, or is it like a couple that you knew that you wanted to put in there?
See, I first of all believe that just because you're educated doesn't mean that you don't have prejudices. It should lessen your chances of having prejudice, but it doesn't necessarily translate to that. It's not something that I thought of that I wanted to make any kind of a statement. For me, it was just something that worked in my narrative, and this is something that can happen. It is something that can cause a huge upheaval. But when you read the book, you also see that I don't want to give things away, so I can't explain it, but it's one of the things that are happening in a building, in a society. And if something like this happens, a lot of the time, you know, it's the outside factors that make your reaction to something a lot more enhanced than ordinarily it would be. Like, you know, the neighbor saying, oh gosh, how can this happen?
Yeah.
It's not something that I really said, oh, I need to make this statement. It's something that just came to me, and I mean, it's been done in hundreds of movies, it's been done in hundreds of books. So yeah, this is just my little take on it, simple story.
The other aspect was domestic violence being covered in your book.
Yes.
That was also quite a statement. Tell me, what gave you the idea of that?
It is a very big reality, and it should be spoken about more. You know, a lot of people say, oh, what happens between a husband and a wife is, you know, just between them, and it should be within the four walls of their home. But a lot of women suffer from domestic violence, and I just can't digest it. It just bothers me to a level, and I wanted to write about it in a way, in my own way, in the book, where, you know, it should have a resolve. It should be recognized, and it should be resolved in a positive way for the woman.
Why was it so important for you? Did you know people who were victims of domestic violence?
You know, yes. And also, you know,
the staff in your home, you have so many ladies who come in and they come in with bruises and they get beaten up, and I think it's just terrible. They don't even talk about it, and you'll ask them what happened and they'll say, oh, I fell. Something doesn't seem right. And maybe, I don't know, they can't talk about it, or they're worried, or they're afraid, they don't know any other way. Also with the lady in Paradise Towers, you take it till you can't take it anymore, and events conspire to make you sort of, do something about it. These are educated women, so imagine uneducated women with very limited incomes, what happens to them? And it's a real concern, and as a woman, it's something you should address, even in your very little way, you should.
So I'm sure our audience are wondering that, wow, you said it's just like a, because I think a lot of the reviews were saying it's a breezy book.
It is a breezy book.
It is a breezy book. But I think what is interesting is that it's also, kind of acknowledging all these kind of heavy issues which are out there. And I think that's interesting that you touch upon all of this.
Sometimes you don't have to wave a flag in someone's face and say, look, this is happening. It can be put across gently in a more palatable way, but it should be talked about. It doesn't have to be, shoved down your throat. You can approach issues. If you have something you want to say, you can approach it in a different way, in a breezy book, in a nice song. It doesn't have to be aggressive, is what I feel.
I kind of like the movies that your parents have done, right? They also have like messages and stuff, but all deal with kind of issues like that.
Like Hrishikesh Mukherjee's movies.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's what. So I wanted to ask you that, so you said that you weren't in a building like this. No. So tell us what it was like. I mean, I want to know, growing up, what it was like to have, you said your grandparents used to be there as well. So he's a legend, and your father's another one. What it's like if you could give your writer treatment to your family, how would you describe that?
Well, you'd be very bored. We're a very normal family. We have our normal issues. There's lunchtime, dinner time, lunchtime conversation. How was your day? What did you do? My brother and me are growing up. We have a dynamic of any brother-sister. We have our little disagreements, fights. We tease each other, but we're very close. Mm-hmm. There's mom and dad. It's just that dad goes out and makes movies and comes back home. We don't really discuss it at home. It's just your normal lives, or what the kids did, or who got an A star in their paper. It's that kind of stuff.
I wanted to ask you, because you have maintained, you're one of the people who's not in the limelight. I'm sure that everyone keeps telling you, Shweta, why didn't you start acting and things like that? And of course, we know now why, because you're busy writing.
No, it's because I don't think I have, first of all, I had no desire to act, and I don't think I have the talent or the gumption or what it takes to go out there. I'm nervous just to be in front of your TV camera, so I don't think I'd be able to do it in front of...
Really? You don't look at all nervous.
Well, I am.
Okay.
And so I don't have what it takes. Honestly, it's not necessary that just because, your family members can do it, that you can do it. And I'm shy. I'm trying to get out of that whole mold. So it wasn't for me. It wasn't ever for me.
You're on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Obviously your family who are in show business, they're on social media as well. How do you decide? Because I'm really curious about that. How do you decide? And I think a lot of people, these are issues which everybody is dealing with as well. What do you share, right? And what do you keep to yourself?
I actually became a public account literally 2 months ago.
Really?
Yeah. It's because I was launching my brand, and then you need to be out there.
The clothes brand, yeah.
Yes, MXS. And so I had to open my account, and it's taken all the fun out of Instagram for me.
Seriously?
Yeah, I barely post because I'm like, now,
Before, what was it like?
Before, it was fun, and
only your friends kind of thing.
It would be my friend. Yeah, it was just friends and people I knew.
Right.
So I had 300 followers or something. I haven't checked how many followers I have right now, but I mean, it's just taken the fun out of it altogether. It's just that I feel, I don't know, I can't write little comments on, if I put a picture up of my kids, they're going to kill me. They're going to say, Mom, we didn't look good in that picture, and why have you put it up? And so many people are going to now see it and carry it. So I have to deal with a lot of that, and it's easier just not to post it. So it's really taken the fun out of it for me.
And so, and I wanted to ask you, because, especially as a mother, mm-hmm. because there's so much talk also about, as children of stars. Oh, yeah. And you're a grown-up, but a lot of people are talking about the covers that have come, like Shah Rukh's daughter and things like that. It must be really tough, right, as to decide, okay, what is public and private? Because part of it is also to promote, right? You have to promote. Now that you are promoting your book or your clothes brand, you need to do that. But do you think stars get it right? Or are they all like human beings, just figuring it out?
They're human beings figuring it out. And I think the more people that understand that, the less they'll judge them harshly, because everyone's just a human being trying to figure things out. I mean, social media is just a few years old. I'm 44. I don't really understand it that much. You know, the kids tell me stuff and you learn and you're trying to get on with it. But it takes you time to sort of learn, and then you do fall down, you do hurt yourself, and then you have to get back up and then, you know, get out there again. Like, I've switched off all my comments. I'm too thin-skinned. I don't want to hear nasty things that they say about my children or my family members. So I switch off comments on all my pictures.
Oh.
And I get abused for that, because one or two by mistake I've left open, and they're like,
You get abused?
yeah, why have you left the comments on for all your pictures and you leave it on for some pictures? And some people are really nasty.
No, you mean you've switched off the comments for your children's pictures?
No, for all pictures. I don't want to hear it. Why should I?
Yeah.
I mean, look at the picture. You like it, you don't want to like it, don't like it. I don't want to hear your nasty comments.
Oh, so that's one way of dealing with it. You just shut off the comments.
Yep.
thing.
There's a
And
little
what about
switch.
Twitter?
I don't use it that often. You know, I just repost some things, or I mean, I like to read it. I get my news off of it, so that's how I use it mainly. But I don't really tweet much.
No, that's a really good way of talking about it. And you, of course, said, you know, you just said right now that you're 44.
Yes.
And how the whole writing thing was basically because, you know, of the empty nest syndrome.
Yep.
And you must have seen your mother go through that as well.
Yes. And I think maybe she's my inspiration and why I'm doing this when I'm doing this. Because even my mother, my brother and me were sent off to boarding school very young.
Yeah. Where were you?
We were in Switzerland.
Okay.
My brother and me both. And
is that because it was easier being, like, you know, how famous your father was, that you didn't have to be in India?
you'll have to ask them why they sent me there, but I'm just really glad they did.
Really?
We had a very normal upbringing.
No one knew Amitabh Bachchan there?
No, no one.
Yeah.
So it was just a very normal upbringing. You know, you weren't compared to somebody. Like, our Hindi teacher would not be like, why is she getting such bad grades in Hindi? Look whose
Yeah.
granddaughter she is. We didn't have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it was a normal upbringing, which is great, because, you know, you want to bring up healthy, normal adults at the end of the whole thing. And we didn't grow up entitled, because, you know, you were just somebody else in class. You know, you were just one of the other kids. No one
So your
knew
entire
father.
schooling was there?
From the age of 12.
That's such an interesting idea. So it's basically, it just took away the whole
Yes,
famous parents factor.
absolutely.
And did you do the same for your children?
Absolutely. Not that they have to deal with the famous
they're
parents. Yes, they were both away from the age of 13.
And that was, and that was also because you didn't want them to get
It
this.
wasn't so much about, you know, what my parents did. It was more that I just felt I loved what it turned me into. Boarding school, self-sufficient, a lot more independent. I didn't want them being here and just being babied and driven to tuitions and stuff like that. I wanted them to go out there and have to, you know, do stuff for themselves, and I think it worked out very well.
No, yeah, of course. And I really totally get that idea. Now, I wanted to ask you, because I saw one of your interviews and you talked about the fact that, you know, you're really proud of your mother's 100% attendance in Parliament. So tell me, what do you know about her life in Parliament? You know, as a political reporter, we follow her there. But I want to understand that from outside, for all of you, what must Parliament feel like?
Well, it's honestly, to me, it looks like a little bit like school, because she's about, I can't miss Parliament. I have to be there. And every time she's been sworn in, we've all been there. I mean, I went when she was reinstated again.
You did?
Yes. I went quietly and I was on the balcony, I think it's called. So I was there. And
gallery.
I remember the gallery. And I remember when she was swearing herself in, I clapped and someone said, you're not allowed to clap. And I was so embarrassed.
Seriously?
Yeah.
We didn't hear all the clapping and all of
Well,
that?
they shushed me out. They're like, no, it's not allowed. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh dear, I didn't know that. But,
Yeah.
you know, I'm so proud of her that she's doing this. She's turned 70, and she's so passionate about the causes that, you know, she works for. She's always saying, oh, and today in Parliament this happened.
Really?
And this
That's
happened.
dinner time conversation?
Well, she does. I mean, it's what she does.
Does she talk about because, you know, she
So-and-so, someone caught me in Central Hall today. So-and-so, or someone got really amazing samosas from home today. It's like being in school. It's like checking each other's tiffin boxes and you know what you talk about and stuff. And I think she has a great attitude towards it.
And did she tell you also that she's quite a feminist in Parliament? I
Of
mean,
course.
she's told off people for behaving badly.
Yes.
Huh?
She is a feminist. She's a feminist in everyday life as well.
So, what do you make of some of those people and the kind of things that they say about women?
I mean, she's not given me specifics.
But you must be seeing from newspapers and other
Actually, I don't want to say this. I don't read newspapers. I'm so sorry. It's what I read highlights that, I mean, I know I'm informed about what's going on, but it's, you know, what I see on the, say, NDTV app or whatever. So that's
My
what,
NDTV people are going to love this.
Oh, good.
Yeah, you just plugged the NDTV app. No, I wanted to ask you that, you know, because she is in Heartland politics, right?
Yes.
Her Rajya Sabha election, I don't know, did you follow that? Because that was quite a, did you see that? It was quite a nail biter, politically speaking.
Yes, it was.
So what did you make of it? Like for you, who doesn't read newspapers usually, you know, the role that Raja Bhaiya played. What do you think of that?
Actually, I'm not aware of all this, but I do know that there were some disparaging remarks made about my mother. And she is more than capable of taking these people head on. And she's the right person to ask for this. She knows who to say to, what to say to whom. And she's very capable of handling, you know, whatever criticism comes her way.
You're of course speaking of Naresh Agarwal saying ki unko kya malum, she's an actress.
Yes.
And saying that. And of course, this has been made a comment about other actresses as well who've now become politicians. So she can handle it, huh?
She can handle it.
And what does your dad say about that when he's saying, you know, when people
You
say,
must ask him.
I know.
You
No,
must
but
ask
this is,
him.
but it must be quite upsetting actually that to see random people say things about, you know, but or the fact that she's a public person is something that you know that it's part and parcel of.
Well, I'll tell you this much. You know your parents are in public life, but they're still your parents. Your father's your father. He's 76. He's working 24/7, breaking his back. Your mother's your mother. She's 70 years old. She's, you know, out there, putting herself out there, you know, passionate about causes she believes in. Your brother's your brother. Your sister-in-law is your sister-in-law. So, yes, I know that they're public figures. But if there's something said about them, it does disturb me. It deeply disturbs me, as it would any child. If someone said something about your parents, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. So, yeah, it does disturb me. It does upset me. But I also have to then understand that it's a part of their job, I guess, you know, and they have to just roll with it.
She's really into politics, right?
Well, she enjoys tremendously what she does, and she believes in what she stands
Do you
for.
go and campaign for her?
No.
Would you go and campaign? In
I
Uttar
mean-
Pradesh, I mean, that's where her party is from.
You know, I think she would need people who understand what she's doing there. I don't know if I have that understanding, but yeah.
Okay, so as we end, I want to ask you, I believe that you already got 2 other manuscripts already. So, you know, this is obviously, you know, your writer has really kind of emerged right now. So what are they also about other buildings, or tell us?
No,
Are you
there'll
going-
be more human stories.
About a Bollywood star maybe?
I don't know, it could be.
Right.
You never know. But again, the whole thing about writing and being in your head is you make up these different worlds for yourself. So I think I'll make up a different world for myself than the one I live in.
Shweta Bachchan Nanda, thank you so much. It's been such
Thank
a pleasure
you.
talking to you and for giving us insight into your life and your writing.
Thank you so much.